The PlayStation 5 has been out for almost 4 years, and I really cannot believe that back in 2020 we had the release of the 5th console, Sony's console, the PlayStation, and even to this day, we're getting, at the second half of 2024, the PS5 is still selling very well. The games are selling very, very well. And today I'm going over with you guys the top 10 highest rated games on the PS5 console. Guys, let me know in the comment section below what some of your favorite games on the PS5 are. After I go over this top 10 list, I'm going to go over some honorable mentions, some games that I thought would be kind of interesting to bring up. Before I get started, of course, the DLC for Elden Ring was recently released. And if that game, in fact, was its own thing and, its own game, it would, in fact, be in the top 10 list of the highest rated games on PS5. But it's not in there. It's DLC. So let's go ahead and get started. If you like these videos, hit that thumbs up button so I can know I can make more. Let's go ahead and get into it. So in at number 10, we have Street Fighter 6, which has a Metacritic score of 92 out of 100. Ever since I got into Street Fighter 2 many years ago, we were like talking about around 30 years ago, or close to 30 years ago, Street Fighter 2 when I first got into that. And through the years, I've just loved the Street Fighter games. I did get Street Fighter 6 for the PS5, and it's just so cool that this game through the years has done very, very well, and it's scoring very well. It's in the top 10 list. Out of all the hundreds of games on the PS5, it's in that top 10 list, which I think is pretty awesome, pretty amazing. In at number 9, we have Demon Souls, which has also a Metacritic score of 92 out of 100. The funny thing with Demon Souls on the PS5, of course, Demon Souls originally was released on the PlayStation 3. And when I first got my PS3 many years ago, Demon Souls was in fact one of the first games that I got for that system. And so here we are many years later, and when I got my PS5, that was kind of the same thing. Demon Souls was one of the first games that I got on my PS5 console. Kind of cool with that. Good to see that the game is scored very, very highly. And I'm pretty sure that this one has been selling pretty well on the PS5 as well. So cool to see it in the top 10 list. Number 8, we have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This one also has a Metacritic score of 92 out of 100. The previous release, the Final Fantasy VII Remake on the PS5, is one that I've really, really enjoyed. I'm getting kind of close to the end of that game. And once I finish it, really excited to check out Rebirth. I've been trying to not watch too much of the gameplay, too many spoilers, but I'm really looking forward to playing this one, and glad to see it scoring well. And I'm really glad to hear from response and feedback from gamers that they've really enjoyed this title. In at number 7, we have Resident Evil 4, which has a Metacritic score of 93 out of 100. It's funny to think, so many years ago when Resident Evil 4 was first released, it was originally released on the Nintendo GameCube. And then, of course, the months and years that followed, Resident Evil was released for so many different platforms. It was released for the PC. I think it was also even released for the cell phone, or different cell phones. But this release, Resident Evil 4, that was recently released not too long ago, the kind of like the remake or the remastering of it, a lot of people have really, really enjoyed. And the year that it came out, it has been kind of like, for many people, their game of the year. I believe this one was released in 2023. And for many people, that was their game of the year because they just really enjoyed it, really loved it. In at number 6, we have, this is one that kind of caught me off guard, Tetris Effect. Tetris Effect has a Metacritic score of 93 out of 100. I do like Tetris. I'm not diehard. I'm not like, a professional Tetris player, but I did watch the Tetris movie that came out like a year or two ago, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was kind of a fun little movie because, they showed the Game Boy and like the history of Tetris, and I enjoyed that, the Tetris movie. I've not played Tetris Effect, but this one scoring very highly, 93 out of 100. In at number 5, we have Hades, which Hades has a score of 93 out of 100. Hades, of course, is a game that a lot of people fell in love with when it was first released last generation. They brought it again back to the PS5 for those that did not get the chance to play it. I wanted to get on the PS5, and it's scoring very, very well. In at number 4, we have God of War Ragnarok, which Ragnarok has a score of 94 out of 100. I really loved the God of War that I think was released in 2017, or not too long ago, several years ago. I was saying not too long ago. It was actually a little while since the God of War for the PS4 was originally released. Played through that one, absolutely loved it. I have not played Ragnarok yet though. Even though I loved the previous installment, the backlog, it's kind of tricky sometimes. But yeah, Ragnarok has a score of 94 out of 100, and pretty great. In number 3, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition. It also has a score of a 94 out of 100. And if you have not had the chance to play this one, of course, this is another one of those games that's been released on many different platforms. Now's your chance if you have a PS5. If you're really into in-depth RPGs that offer a whole lot of hours of experience, like seriously bang for your buck, even if you were talking about this complete edition, which has the different DLC, which has multiple hours per segment, not including dozens of hours from the main game, you're getting a really good deal. So if you see this one for cheap and you're into RPGs, definitely check it out. Okay, so in at number 2, almost getting to the number 1 spot, but not quite. In at number 2, we have Baldur's Gate 3, which has a score of 96 out of 100. And the funny thing about this one is I think this one really caught a lot of people, and this is definitely your definition of catching people off guard or taking the world by storm, because the previous title, the Baldur's Gate 2, was released, I believe, decades ago. You don't have too many games where like you have a game and then decades later it gets a release and then makes a huge impact. But you have that case with Baldur's Gate 3. They really showed a lot of developers what was up in terms of quality game development, and again, took a lot of people by surprise. And this is a title for sure that got a lot of Game of the Year awards, not just with critics, but a lot of gamers too. So 96 out of 100, that's really high. Okay, the highest rated game on the PS5, the number 1 game on the PS5, highest rated with a 96 out of 100 is Elden Ring. Of course, just talked about it recently got a DLC, which many people have been playing, streaming, loving. This one, of course, was definitely highly anticipated, and it met the hype for millions of gamers around the world. It sold millions of copies, downloaded millions of times, whether it was on various consoles or Steam. 96 out of 100, Elden Ring. Pretty impressive. So there are the top 10 highest rated games on the PS5. I'd like to go over some honorable mentions that I thought would be kind of interesting to just briefly talk about with you guys. In at number 35 is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. This one got an 88 out of 100. Still, I mean, you're getting close to 90 out of 100. That's really impressive. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a PS5 console exclusive. You can also play Rift Apart on your PC. Unfortunately, this one didn't really sell as well. I don't really know the numbers as far as the console goes on the PS5, but I know definitely Rift Apart on Steam, unfortunately, really didn't do too well. I guess it had a peak on Steam of around 8,000 or so players, which that kind of really pales in comparison when you're talking about games like God of War, and also Horizon Zero Dawn or Forbidden West. Those games had tens of thousands more players with its peak. But even saying that, this is a great title. If you've got a PS5, you're into action and adventure games, definitely check out Rift Apart. 88 out of 100, pretty impressive. One interesting game that got a lot of Game of the Year award nominations is Alan Wake 2. And Alan Wake, I apologize for bringing this one up just because Alan Wake was definitely one of my favorite games on the Xbox 360 back in the day. Never thought I'd get a sequel. This one got a, this one is the 29th highest rated game on the PS5. It has a score of 89 out of 100, which is actually pretty impressive. But I was happy to see that after all these years, many years, the first Alan Wake game was released in 2010. So here we are many years later, a sequel gets released, and it made a big impact. I'm really, really happy about that. Even though it didn't make the top 10 list, really happy that they made a sequel, and a lot of people really loved it. In at 26, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. That's the one I'm currently kind of getting towards the end with. I know Rebirth's already out, but the remake Intergrade got a score of 89 out of 100. Love it. Think it's fantastic. Think it's great. Really, really enjoyed it. Okay, one I definitely have to bring up and talk about briefly is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. This one kind of like, you know, I feel like it kind of came and like it scored very well. A lot of people bought it, but not really a whole lot of people are talking about it. The Spider-Man 2, 15th highest rated game on the PS5. That's really impressive. Again, there are hundreds and hundreds of games on the PS5. To be in that 15th spot, really impressive. It has a score of a 90 out of 100. You know, 9 out of a 10 game with like all the dozens of reviewers reviewing this game. That's really, really impressive. Okay guys, there is the top 10 list and some honorable mentions for the highest rated games on the PS5. Let me know in the comment section below, guys, what some of your honorable mentions are for the PS5, some of your favorite games. I read all the comments and I'd love to get your feedback and what some of your favorite games are. But as always guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.